All right, this video is going to go over arithmetic series. These are kind of tricky. All right, so you're going to be using two equations here. This one should look familiar to you. So I'm not going to explain that one, but this one is new. This is the equation for a sum of a sequence, which is a series, right? So basically these ends are all the same. Your A1 is still your start. And your A sub n is going to be your finish, your last number. And then n is just the number of terms that you did. So like the way that they like to write these is like this. This is called sigma notation. All right. And so basically here's your start on the bottom. Here's your finish on the top, in terms of n at least. And then this is your kind of function. It's basically the A sub n equation. I'll show you what I mean by that, but right now let's just kind of see what we have here. So basically what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to plug in the first n value that you see at the bottom there. So if you plug that in, you get 4 times 1, right, which is just 4. That's your first term in this sequence, if you will. So if you plugged in the second one, you would get 4 times 2, which would be 8. And then if you plugged in the third one, which is also your finish line, you would get 12. So basically, I shouldn't put commas there. I should put pluses. They want you to add up 4 plus 8 plus 12. That's what they mean by this right here. And so if you add that up, you get 24. That is the series there when you add up all those numbers. So like look at the second one. You would plug in 1 here, so you would get 5 as your first term. If you plug in 2, you would get 10. Basically, you can think of the number by the letter as like a slope almost, or a rate. So your numbers are just going to be going up by 5 each time. Okay, one more. And then they want you to add all these up. All right, so let's learn how to add them up. Basically, you're going to use this equation right here. So in this scenario, we know S of, they want the first 7 terms. That's my finish line, right? So S of 7 is that n gets repeated right here times the first term, which was 5, plus the last term, the 7th in this case, which was 35. And so you don't have to sit there and go 5 plus 10 is 15, plus 15 is 30, plus, you don't have to waste your time like that. You can just punch it into this equation. So this right here would give you 40. 7 halves times 40 is 140. You could have just punched it straight into the calculator as well. So this is how we're going to do a lot of things on this arithmetic series. So that's how you would do these next 2 problems. Let's move on. Now they want the specified partial sum for each arithmetic series here. So basically they're going to tell you that this is your start. They want that all the way up to the first 8 terms added up. All right, well, here's what you have to do. You have to use this first equation here to go find that last term. So basically, I have A sub n is my first term plus my rate times n minus 1. Okay, well, if we want the 8th term, it's the first term, which was 5 right here, plus, if you look at these, they're all going up by 5. So D is 5 times n is 8 in this scenario. And so all you have to do is punch this in a calculator, but you'll get as 40 is your 8th term. All right, so now that you know that, you can just use the second equation there, the one on the right here. And you can just say, okay, well, the sum of the first 8 terms is n gets repeated times the first term, which was 5, plus the last term, which is 40. And so if you work this out, you'll get 180. So you have to go get that 8th term by using that first equation. That's how I did right here. Once I had that 8th term, then I could use the second equation to find the sum. So like that's how you would do number 7 as well, or 6 and 8. Now let's look at number 9. Number 9 is probably a little easier for you. So basically you just want to go, you want the first 6, right? Well, that's n gets repeated and it's your first plus your last. So it's just 6 over 2 times 36 essentially, which is 108. So that's how you would do number 10 as well. Now, on these, when they give them to you in sigma notation, you need to go get the first term and the last term. So the first term, just plug in a 1 here. You get 2 times 1 plus 3, which is 5. The last term, just plug in an 8 here. You get 2 times 8, which is 16, plus 3, which is 19. Once you know that first term and your last term, you can use the second equation. And you can run through it pretty quickly. So 8 over 2 times 24 is 96. So that's how you're going to do these as well. Go get your first term, your last term, and then use the second equation. All right, now let's look at number 15 here. They want it in sigma notation. They want you to write your own series for this in sigma notation. So go ahead and draw sigma. They gave you the first term. So n equals 1 goes at the bottom. They're telling you to stop at 6. So that's your finish up at the top. And now you need this part, the equation part, right? So basically what you're going to do is you're going to go back up and use equation 1. All right, so let me write it out so you don't get confused. We have a sub n equals a sub 1 plus the rate times n minus 1. And all you're going to have to do is plug in 2 of the things you know. You'll know a1, it's 1. And you know the rate by looking at the sequence here, or the series. You're going up by 1 each time. So now you just clean this up a little bit. So you'll distribute the 1. And then these 1 minus 1 cancel. And you get a to the n is just n. This is a generic equation to find any term. So say you wanted like the 4th term, it would be 4. And look, it is 4. So that's what's going to go here. Just the n though, not the a sub n part. I know that was a little confusing, so let me show you another. You approach this problem, 17, and they want it in sigma notation. So go ahead and draw sigma. They gave you a1. So you know n equals 1 goes at the bottom. They're telling you to stop on 11. That goes at the top. Now, you use this equation, and you have to go get your rate. It's going up by 3 each time. So that's D. And so basically you just go, okay, a sub n is my first term plus my rate times n minus 1. You distribute your 3. Clean this up a little bit. So you'll get a sub n equals 3n minus 2. So you can find any value by plugging in whatever number term it is right here. So like, for example, the 4th term would be 3 times 4 is 12 minus 2 is 10. And look, it is 10. So this green part goes right there. Okay, I'll go ahead and do one more, just because this is kind of important. You really need to understand this. They gave me my first term, so n equals 1. They're telling me to stop after 9 terms. My rate is plus 5. So a sub n is my first term plus my rate times n minus 1. Distribute the 5. Clean it up. That's what goes here. Hope that made sense. Okay, let's look at the next page. All right, now these, let me write these equations at the top again real quick. Okay, so on these, they're giving you the sum of the series, and they're telling you find me the, for example, on 19, they're telling you find the 20th term. All right, so basically you're going to use this equation, the second equation. You know S sub 20 equals negative 790. So right here is negative 790. And that was when number was 20. So that goes for the letter N. And they gave you A1. And you're trying to find not A sub N, it'd be A sub 20 in this scenario. Just like that. So you just plug in what you know into that second equation. Now I'm going to call this 10 over 1, 10. And I am not going to distribute. Lots of people distribute right there. I'm not one of them. I just go ahead and divide by 10 on both sides of the equation, because now I'll just have negative 79 equals, the 10s cancel, and it just leaves that negative 6 plus A20. And then I can just add 6 and get A20 is negative 73. Let me show you another one of those. They're not that bad. Okay, let's look at number 20 so I have a little bit more room. You're going to use the second equation and plug in what you know. You know the sum of the series is negative 660 when the number is 30. And your first term is negative 432. And you're looking for the 30th term. So again, I'm going to call this 15. Let me just erase it to keep it clean. Now right here, I'm going to divide by this 15. And so when you do this, you'll get negative 44 equals that negative 432 plus A30. Then you can just add 432 and you'll get 388. So that's how you do those problems. They're not that bad. The bad ones are the ones coming up. All right, these are really tricky. So I'm gonna do it over to the side here, that way I have room. And I'm gonna copy these equations if I can. Okay, it kind of worked. Okay, you're going to need both of these equations. And we'll do number 24 here. They're going to give you the sum of the series and the rate, and that's it. And you have to go find A1. In order to do this, the first thing you do is you use this first equation. And so you'll be like, okay, my number was 30. N is 30. N is 30. So a to the 30, we don't know. We don't know a1 either, but we do know the rate is -2. And we know that that 30 was my n. So all I knew were the letters D and N right there. D and N. All right, so basically what you're going to want to do here is distribute the -2. Actually, I would probably go ahead and call this 29, because then you can just do -2 times 29, which is -58. And you're going to slam the brakes there. We'll call this blue box. Basically, you want to get in terms of A30 to where you could substitute this right here in for A30. I'll show you why it's so important. Your second equation, you know S of 30 is 240. My N was 30. Right here, that blue AN, well, I guess it's not AN, it's A30, because N is 30. That blue A30 is where the substitution is going to happen. So it's going to look like this. Let's call 30 over 215. I make the substitution here. Blue box, I have positive A1 minus 58. Now you can just go kind of clean it up and solve. So here's what it would look like. Divide by 15. So you get 16 equals A1 plus A1 combined to form 2A1. And then you have that minus 58. So now you can just add 58 and divide by 2. So let's see, that's 74 equals 2A. A1, I guess. Divide by 2. A1 is 37. I know that was rather confusing, so we're going to do another one. I don't really like the example 26, so we're going to use a different one. We'll use 23, and I'll rewrite it over here on the right. S of 20 equals 80, and D equals 2. Okay. Remember, the first thing you're going to want to do is use equation 1 here. You don't know AN, and you don't know A1. But you do know that the rate is 2 when the number is 20. So AN can basically be called A1 plus 2 times 19, which is 38. This will be blue box, the substitution. So now you come over to the second equation. S of 20 was 80, so 80 is the output when the number is 20. I just use this right here. A1 is A1, and then A sub 20 is blue box. I guess these over here should have said 20. All right, so plus A sub 20. I'll try not to skip any steps here. So really you have 80 equals 20 over 2 is 10. So we're going to call that 10. And we have A1, and then we have our substitution. We can change A20 to be A1 plus 38. Divide by 10. 8 is A1 plus the substitution, which was that A1 plus 38. So really it's like 8 is 2 times A1 plus 38. So you get, subtract 38, you'll get negative 30 is 2A, or 2A1. A1 is negative 15. And that's what they're looking for. Those are tricky. You really kind of have to think about those. So let's keep moving. Now they want the specified partial sum. I'll do the second one here. Basically, you know A1. And if you look from this first term to the second term, we subtracted 2y. So your rate is minus 2y. Now, all you're going to do is you're going to want to get the sum of the first 15. Well, that means you're going to be using the second equation here, this one. But you can't use this equation until you know the far term. So you have to go get that first. So you're actually going to use both equations. And so here's what it's going to look like. Use equation 1 first. So a of 15 is what I'm trying to find. I know my first term is 3x. I know my rate is negative 2y. And I'm looking for the number 15. So this is going to turn into 3x. We'll call this 15 minus 1 is 14 times negative 2 makes minus 28. And then you had the y. So this is a 15 just by using equation 1. And now you use equation 2. Sum of the first 15 is that number over 2 times your first term, which was 3x, plus your second term, which is 3x minus 28y. And I used 2 different colors right there because one of the most common mistakes is right here. People don't realize that there's 2 3x's, but it's the first term plus the last term. All right, so basically, you could call this 3x plus 3x is 6x minus 28y. And then you just distribute a 15 over 2 to that. And so that's going to give you 45x. And it's going to give you negative 210y. So go get your last term. And then use that last term in equation 2. That's how you do those. All right, now this one, there's probably a quicker way to do it. I'm looking at 29. There's probably a quicker way to do it, but I just kind of wrote it out. I plugged in my 5, and so it's like 2 times 5 times x, which is 10x, and then minus 6. So my fifth term was 10x minus 6. This is my fifth. If you plug in 6, you'll get 12x minus 6. 7, you'll get 14x minus 6. And 8, you'll get 16x minus 6. So now you know that you have those 4 terms, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th terms, right? And they want to know the value of x. Well, you have to realize that the sum of all of these, if you added them all together, is going to be 28. They're telling you the sum of this is 28, right? So you can just add all these up and set it equal to 28 and go solve. So 10x plus 12x plus 14x plus 16x, that makes 52x. And then minus 6 plus minus 6, etc., makes minus 24. So you get x equals 1 here. That one's a little tricky, but it's not that bad. The sum of the first positive integers, well, you have, that's just like 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus all the way up to the 100th one, which would be 100. And so you have your first and your last, and you can just use equation 2. You should get 50-50 because it's going to be sum of 100 equals that number over 2 times your first plus your last. just like that. All right, now we're looking at 31 and 32. When I did these, I only drew out the second one. Generally, though, when it comes to a word problem, I go ahead and draw. I'm talking a bunch because my computer's freezing. I'm trying to buy time. I usually draw out all the word problems, but I didn't draw out 31. I just kind of thought to myself, okay, the first one's going to be 20 plants. And then each one has 12 more. So your rate is 12, right? And so if you think about it, you can use the first equation to get the amount for the 8th term. So it'd look like this: your first term plus your rate times your number minus 1. And so if you do this, you get the 8th to be 104. And now you know the first 20, the last 104, and you can just use equation 2. So it'd look like this: S of 8 is that number over 2 times 20 plus 104. And you should get 496. Which brings us to the last question. This one I did draw out just so I didn't screw it up. So I drew 3 triangles. They say the first one has sides 50 centimeters long, and they're talking about perimeter. So the perimeter of that is 150. Then they say it goes down by 5 each triangle. If you do this perimeter, you get 135. And then I did another one just to make sure. This one adds up to 120. So if you look at this, you're going down 15 every single time. That means your rate is minus 15. You need your rate so that you can use equation 1 to go get the 6th triangle. So it'd look like this. The 6th one is going to be your first one plus your rate times the number minus 1. So if you do this, you get 75 for the 6th one. But they want the sum of them. So you have to use the second equation now and plug in what you know. The number was 6. My first term was 150. My second term was 75. So if you do this, you get 675. All right, those are arithmetic series. They're a little trickier than the sequences. So hope this video helped.